Welcome to the Mostly All Figured Out podcast with your host, Emily Rose. Regardless of the career field, the lifestyle, everyone is mostly figuring it all out. This podcast is where we pull back the veil of perfection and share true stories, experiences, encouragement, and of course failures, detailing how people just like you are making it all happen, despite the uncertainty, the fear, the imposter syndrome, the setbacks, the shame, whatever it is. If you believe there is more for you than what your life looks like right now, you're in the right place. Let's figure out our next steps together. Now let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Mostly All Figured Out podcast. I'm your host, Emily Rose. And this episode you're about to hear is pretty late. It's pretty late. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's ADHD. We don't know. We'll never know. But this episode was recorded. This interview was recorded many moons ago. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was recorded April of 2024. It is now January of 2025 if you are listening to it when it was released. So I thought I'd just say most of the stuff we talk about. The guest today is Sarah Baird, Executive Director of Let There Be Light International, a fabulous organization you'll hear a little bit about, and I've had the honor and pleasure of working with since 2018. Yeah, 2018. But Sarah and I recorded this in April. Everything we talk about really is not time-based, I think, for the most part. The only thing that we discuss that is no longer relevant is we were promoting the 2024 annual solar celebration event, which is Let There Be Light International's annual fundraiser event. It is a lovely time, so great, and it happened in 2024 again. So when we reference June 25th, we are talking about last year's event. Now, great news for you. We're going to do it again this year because we always do, because it's annual. And we have a date already. So June 17th, mark your calendars, solar celebration at Duende. Hopefully we still have to do a lot of the planning for it. It's only January, people. But yeah, hopefully we'll have Johnny and the Man Kids back to play, my brother's band. If you haven't already, be sure to go back and listen to the episode I did with my brother Johnny. But it's a great event and very accessible. $30 a ticket. Come on, for a good cause. You can do it. And it's so fun. I'll see you there. Anyway, sorry to Sarah. This is late. She won't be surprised at all. I told you she's been working with me since 2018. And yeah, just know, this is part of the journey. This is going to be part of the journey of 2025. The year of routine. The year of Adderall, right? We're working on it. We're growing. We're trying. We're learning, So thank you for listening. Despite the chaos and the inconsistency, we know we're capable of it. We're capable of being consistent. We did it at the beginning, right? So we're going to bring it back. And now we have meds. So I'm excited. So here's your episode with Sarah Baird, long awaited. Again, apologies to Sarah. And happy 2025, y'all. And thanks for listening. One last thing I almost forgot. We were having some technical difficulties at the library where we recorded this back when we recorded it. One of the difficulties was, for some reason, we can only get one mic to work. So we share a mic. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you will really just mostly see Sarah, which is great. But the sound may be a little off for that. And the other thing is, I noticed in my editing it and listening to it that for some reason there are random points where the mic drops out just for like a second. And so during that point, I record my video on my phone, or for this instance I recorded it on my phone. And so I increased the sound on the phone when it drops out. So you can still hear what she says, but it's going to sound not as good quality for like a second. So just an FYI. It's fine though. You can still hear it. Okay. It's not about being perfect, right? It's just doing it. Let's go. Welcome back to the Mostly All Figured Out podcast.
Wait, do we really have to get that close?
I'm just trying to be seen for this part.
Do you want to come on my side?
No, you are more important to be seen here. So you stay here. This is your host, Emily Emily Rose. We're in the library today. We had mild technical difficulties, as we do every so often. I don't know what the Mostly All Figured Out podcast would be without technical difficulties. It wouldn't be itself. So, but Jordan came up with this solution. We will share a mic and we're working it out. Thank you, Jordan. You're the best. You are the best. But we are here today in the library with Sarah Baird, Executive Director of Let There Be Light International. Sarah, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here.
And you have a formal like affiliation with the UN as well. Kind of.
Kind of, not really. I do help out and serve on the UN NGO major groups and women's groups. Those are all voluntary groups. The UN structure when it comes to social and environmental kind of programming and impact includes civil society voices.
Okay.
And so they have, I think at this point there's like 19 major groups, and there's elders, and there's youth, and so you do have to participate and but I do help with some of the writing of the position papers and stuff. But yeah, so it's not really.
I
They
mean,
just say, "Come on in, babe," but
right.
but I do get delegate passes to go to some of the very cool meetings. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Okay, it's very cool.
Yeah,
Total
like
bucket list
I
that I
mean,
didn't know was on the bucket list.
Thank
Yes.
you. Okay, that's
Okay.
the appropriate. So the other thing you should know about Sarah is that she's incredibly humble. And so things that are really exciting and really impressive about herself, she'll be like, no, 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 no. Everyone does that. That's fine. Everyone writes things for the UN. It's okay. No, it's not. It's actually very exciting and very impressive. So
Little story
okay.
about the first time I realized that I really wanted to engage with people doing international work and at the UN was I was in grad school at Columbia University in New York, and I was studying Russian literatures and languages, and
Russian.
Yeah, Russian. I have a
Interesting.
graduate degree in that.
Okay.
But I was primarily studying underground protest literature. It's called Samizdat, self-published. And to make a little bit of money, but also to further my language skills, I was working for a group called Perhaps Kids Meeting Kids Can Make a Difference. And the idea was that kids in Russia would have pen pals in the US. And this was during the Cold War, and it was supposed to be the evil empire. We're supposed to hate them. I don't subscribe to hating groups of people, but so I was translating these Russian letters into English and English letters into Russian from these kids who just were like interested in peace and trying to come together. And it was the year that the rights of the child was signed at the UN, which parenthetically the US has still not signed. And it includes things like not having child soldiers, which you'd think we'd be aligned with.
Yeah.
But there are some countries that we've supported that don't believe in this. And we also have this whole thing about states' rights. So God forbid we sign an international treaty that protects children. It's crazy talk.
Wow.
But anyway, so this was like maybe 80, I'm trying to think, maybe 1988. I was living in New York doing graduate school, and my husband Ben and I got to go as volunteers to the UN during this whole process of negotiations around the rights of the child. And so we actually got to volunteer doing things like hosting kids from around the world to do meet and greet like activities, and it was just like the sweetest day ever.
Yeah.
And so that definitely sparked an interest of engaging at some point, and then when I was able to many years later through Let There Be Light International, that was like very awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm still like not over the Russian thing because I did not know that about you at all. So do you like speak Russian fluently?
No, not anymore. I used to.
Oh my God.
I did. I was very interested in so undergrad, I was at Tufts University. I studied Soviet and East European studies. I was really interested in this idea that well, first of all, I was terrified of nuclear war. This was
Mm.
like during the Cold War. It was like, oh, don't worry, build a
Mm-hmm.
bunker, which my grandmother parenthetically did
Oh, wow.
build a bomb shelter.
Wow.
And we have that in because we live in a house that has a bomb shelter now. Anyway,
No way.
yeah, way. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, that's really going to protect you. Anyway, but I really, yeah. So I was studying Russian literatures and languages, and Slavics and
and
Old
you,
Church Slavonic and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So yes, at one point I was fluent,
okay.
mostly fluent. I
Okay.
lived in the former Soviet Union for after I graduated from college, but just for that summer.
Oh, wow.
And then I've been back once since then as a tourist. But
And
yeah,
your interest in that was just based off of, being in the Cold War, or like, being surrounded by it. You wanted to be knowledgeable. You wanted to, or what was
I
it?
thought I was going to be a professor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see that for you. I can
Yeah,
see that.
yeah, and I think later we're going to talk about different stages and different things that happen, but
Yeah.
one thing that happened that was very unforeseen for me was I'm in a doctoral program at Columbia in New York, and all of a sudden the Berlin Wall came down,
Mm.
and which was great, and it also meant that all these refuseniks, all these people who were not allowed to emigrate from Russia under the Soviet regime, the borders opened. And so all of these people came to New York City. And I
Wow.
really couldn't compete linguistically. And these were people, literature in a repressive regime is so critical because it is a way for people to communicate their dreams and their hopes and and also to organize. There's
Yeah.
ways to covertly put messaging into literature and stuff. So all these people had much better groundings in language as well as the literature that I was studying. So I took the master's and ran. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that
Wow.
was yeah. But I was studying underground protest literature, and in fact, my thesis was called "Hiccuping Toward Heaven," and it was about using the mechanism of drunkenness in literature to convey ideas that would be considered like illegal, so
Wow.
using like this cover of being drunk to be able to express your true thoughts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, you're so cool.
No,
That's so wild. You wrote your college
no, a graduate, yeah, my
graduate,
master's,
your
yeah.
master's thesis on being drunk to convey, like, faking being drunk to
Well,
get.
I think actually the characters in the novel that I was working on were actually drunk, but it was a way for the
Mm,
author to be able to convey
I see.
absolutely verboten like issues and ideas that would not be allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So, okay, so let's before we got to this point,
Yeah.
give us your history. Did you grow up in Buffalo? Are you from out of here? Siblings? Tell us.
I grew up in Buffalo
Mhm.
in the Elmwood Village. I am the second of four kids. Um, yeah, I left when I was 18 to go to college, and I was gone for 35 years. But came back a few years ago with my husband.
Mhm.
He likes to say when he ran out of excuses, because I was trying to get him to move to Buffalo for ages.
Really?
And but he's a Jersey boy, going to Springsteen tonight
Okay.
in Syracuse.
Oh,
Yeah,
fun.
go Ben.
We
Yeah,
love him. We love Ben
but
and Springsteen.
he ran out of excuses, and we moved back, and it's been great.
Yeah.
But so we were in New York and Rhode Island, and then Connecticut and New York,
Mm.
and then back here. But yeah, when I was growing up in the Elmwood Village, it was the 70s. It was very freeform.
Yeah.
We were on our own a lot. I was pretty convinced when between the ages of 5 and 7 that when I grew up, I wanted to be a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Honestly, probably same.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And
sounds
I was
right.
a boy until I was like 11 or 12, like
Sure.
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote God letters asking if I could please be a dog because I just like,
Really?
well, girls were a little dingy, like they were always playing house and stuff. Like I didn't, I was like so
Not
not of
your vibe.
interest.
Not your
No,
vibe.
no,
No.
no. But then when I was like I think it was when I was 10, my older sister and we did make a blood pact,
Mm.
because I was certain that by the time I was 18, which seemed really old, that I was going to be a famous comedian. And so we had it in blood and we, signed it. And I was definitely going to be a famous comedian by the time I was the old age of 18.
You
And then if I didn't, I owed her a milkshake, which seemed like the
there's
best thing ever.
so
Right?
much to unpack here.
Yeah.
So you wrote in blood
Yeah.
that you were going to be a comedian by 18.
Not a comedian, a famous
A
comedian.
famous, sorry, a
Yeah.
famous
Yeah.
comedian. That
Yeah.
is an important distinction. And if you
Absolutely.
weren't, you owed your sister a milkshake.
Yeah.
Did she have another side of this that she was going to be something? Or was it just like,
No,
no,
she was
just
just
you?
like, no, she was just like, Sarah, no, that's not happening.
Why are we doing?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so whose idea was it? Was it yours or hers? Were you just like,
Probably
I'm gonna
mine.
prove it to you?
Yeah, I'm gonna prove it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
didn't.
did you do anything?
No,
Did you,
unfortunately
did
I
you like
didn't,
get
but
on
there's still
stage?
time. I mean, I
There's
feel
still
like,
time.
yeah, there is. I mean, not, I do owe her a milkshake, but there's time
Yeah.
for me to
Become a
fulfill
famous
that. Yeah.
comedian. It could
Yeah.
start here
It
today.
could. It could.
Today's day one.
Yeah.
So when we last talked about this podcast, you were like, I want to have a theme around it, which is also very Sarah.
Oh,
This needs to be cohesive. There needs to be a direction that we're going in. And that is why I think Let There Be Light is such a successful organization that has had such massive impact, which we will get into, is because of that, you do have a very good ability to just like keep your eyes on the prize and keep things moving forward. So with the podcast, you said, I want the theme to be the art of reinvention.
I did.
So why? Let's talk about that.
I think partly because I have loved what you've done in the podcast, talking to people, seeing what their trajectories have been, trying to understand motivations,
Mhm.
and I've loved watching you and your art of reinvention as you've been like, reformatting certain things in your life and your professional life, and I do think that we do this a lot, and I'm attracted to people who do that,
Mhm.
um, rather than, having a set idea about what success looks like, what family looks like, checking the boxes and just head down and doing it. Like,
Yeah,
maybe I get bored easily or something, but I want to
definitely.
be, and I don't do multitasking very well. Like
Mm,
I knew I was home with my kids partly because I was dealing with a relatively significant illness, but I'm fine
mm,
now, but I was ill a lot.
mhm.
Ben was working tons of hours and I really wasn't great at oh, I'm going to put the kids here and I'm going to go to work and then I'm going to come home. I like my boundaries are blurry.
Yeah.
And so then knowing that I wasn't going to be doing a multitude of things simultaneously, um, it's I've just kind of enjoyed looking back on what I've done and seeing that I have reinvented several times, and a lot of women I know do this,
Yeah.
and maybe a lot of men too. I just don't know a whole lot of men who've like all of a sudden been like, okay, enough in that lane, I'm going this lane.
Mhm. Yeah.
And maybe that's because society hasn't allowed them to, or maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's still that like maybe the patriarchy is still alive and well and they're supposed to be the providers and so they have to have the stability and they have to make sure everything whereas maybe we feel like we have a little bit more fluidity because
Where they've got the power and are gonna keep holding on to it while we're like going,
yeah,
"I'm gonna
that
I'm
too.
gonna hammer on this end, and I'm gonna go on" yeah,
Right,
maybe, I don't
right,
know.
because we're not as consistent. I don't know. Do you remember when like the first time that you intentionally were like, I need to pivot. I need to switch from what I'm doing here and be and change where I'm at.
Um, I mean, certainly once I stopped grad school and was like, "Oh, I thought I was gonna, be teaching or, gonna be
Mhm.
doing research," and curiously, when Ben had started his doctorate in, clinical psych in Rhode Island, and I'm looking for a job, and I'm like, "I don't know what do you do with a
Mm.
master's of Russian?" Like that, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And, but the funny thing was that there was this small press in town in outside, Providence, and there was a weekly newspaper, and the publisher was like, "Oh, you have a master's from Columbia?" And I never said it was journalism.
Yeah, you just said you had a
I just,
master's.
I mean, he had my CV. It was Russian. I wasn't
Yeah.
like, hi, but he was like, "Oh, sweet. You want to be editor of the newspaper?" I was like, "What?" I mean, in college, I had done things like, a radical friend of of mine and I had, instead of writing for the Daily, which was the newspaper, we created a newspaper called the Iliad, which is daily spelled backwards, very creative, and
Love
wrote all
it.
sorts of like really crackerjack, bizarre things and did theater on top of people's tables while they were eating. Like we were doing guerrilla art. It was a little kooky,
That's
but
so great.
but so I was like, oh yeah, I could be an editor of a newspaper. I
Sure. I
wrote for
wrote
the
things.
Iliad. Yeah.
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 So yeah, I was an editor of the Rhode Island Jewish Herald for,
The Rhode Island Jewish Herald.
yeah, it was a weekly newspaper. And that
Wow.
was, and I got to reinvent myself literally every hour of every day there
Mm.
because I'd hear from the secretary or the receptionist, Sarah, obits on line 2. And I'd be like, oh, hello, obituaries. And then they'd be, line 1, marriages. I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
hello. And I really, it was like,
Yeah.
it was like 2 people writing this paper every week. It was
Right.
ridiculous, but we got a lot of free meals
Yeah.
because the restaurants that would advertise would get a review. Yeah, that's real journalism.
Love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, mhm,
Love
yeah,
that.
but
Perks.
and and then I reinvented soon after that when I had my first child and I
Yeah.
started to stay home
Mm-hmm.
and the entire time I was home loving it. I love babies. I love
Yeah.
kids. The whole thing I love, but I was also like, but who am I and what am I doing and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested about that. And you said you don't do multitasking, but you are on grandma duty now. And
Mm.
well, you don't go by grandma. Sorry. What does
Recently, I'm rah-rah,
rah-rah?
but
I like
he's
that.
nonverbal, so at this
We'll
point,
figure
we'll
it
say,
out.
yeah,
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 we'll say rah-rah. So you're on
okay,
rah-rah duty
yeah.
and also running an organization. But so let's talk about, first you as a mom because I love my children. I love them so much and I love spending and I'm trying more and more, especially now as we're all going through big family changes, to be very intentional about being in the moment with them. And I see how much of an impact it has on them. Like even just restarted playing Uno at night. And they just like they love it. Like they laugh and they just having them do that versus having a regular night of like watching TV and then putting them to bed, they are completely different little people. Just from
Wow.
that change, it's really amazing. And like, I get in these patterns sometimes where I need to be reminded of that. And I'm
Mhm.
so glad that I'm reminded of it again. And we're doing these like games now. And it just makes such a big difference. But I know for myself that I could not do it full time because I don't know if it's because I'm too anxious. I don't know what it is, but it would be really difficult for me to do that, and it's a really hard job to do. So how was that time for you? Did you find yourself ever needing to like fulfill other needs and finding other ways to do that or
Totally, and I think, generationally, we're in a very different
yeah.
place. I wish that we'd had the internet. I know there's lots
Mm,
of things that are bad about the internet,
mhm.
but I wish it was very isolating
Yeah.
being a stay-at-home mom. And I had a few friends who were doing it, but like it was really it was complicated to maintain a sense of myself while having the kids. And
Yeah.
again, it was my choice. I mean, Ben was always supportive of whatever I wanted to do. And I really, really, really did love it, but it was utterly challenging. So yes,
Yeah.
like when I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, I got trained to be a doula so that I could help other families.
Mhm.
And that was crackerjack. Like so that I would get a babysitter so that I would go and like, and I was not a birth doula. I was an afterbirth doula. So
I
I'm
didn't
like,
even know that was a thing.
it was, I don't know if it's still a thing, but so I was like doing people's laundry and dishes when my laundry and dishes were home. I mean, it was anyway, yeah. So I was
Sounds
always
like
trying
something I
to
would
like,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like being a mom for me felt enough in some ways, but I felt like I had all this education and what was I doing with that privilege?
Mm,
What was I,
yeah.
how was I proving that I was worthy
Yeah.
of this? And there
Mhm.
really weren't that many mom groups. There was like some babysitting co-ops, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
you couldn't find the resources that I think maybe you can now.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
and
It's
yeah, then then I don't know. I had all these different things I was trying to write articles. I was getting paid like $50 an article that would take me like 7 hours to write while I had babysitters that were costing me more. I mean, but
Mhm.
also that I could prove to myself, and I thought others, but I don't think others cared,
Mhm.
that, is that a bad thing that just happened?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's still going.
Something happened on the computer in front of me.
The
Um,
computer just went into screensaver mode, but we're back.
um, yeah, but yeah, so I was trying to prove something, I think. So
Yeah.
being in the moment, I loved all that.
Yeah.
Um, and I love it being a grandma.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
but I
such a good
was
grandma.
always, so by the time my youngest was maybe 6, I was helping to found, I was a founding board member of the New Haven Diaper Bank, which has grown into a big thing.
Yeah.
I was working 2 or 3 mornings a week when my kid was at school, working, or my 3 kids, but once the youngest went to school, I was working at um, a high school in downtown New Haven that had a daycare for the babies of students. So I
Mm.
was taking care of those babies,
Mhm.
and my only job really was just to be non-judgmental and provide love.
Yeah.
And that was really hard because sometimes when kids
Yeah.
came in with blue Kool-Aid or something, it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I'm sure I was judgmental at times,
Yeah.
but it was definitely my Zen challenge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I was serving on a bunch of boards and stuff and doing
So you weren't like stay at home, like just like cooking the meals, folding the laundry every single day.
I don't think
You had your
anyone
hands.
really wanted me cooking all the meals, but yeah, yeah, that's not been something I love.
No,
Uh,
is Ben a cook? Is he a good cook?
no, worse,
Oh.
way worse, way worse. But that's okay. Note to audience: if you do partner with somebody whose parents were terrible cooks, because Ben never
Mm.
minded.
Because they were good cooks.
No, because I don't think he
Oh,
was used to having like a lot of great food. Wait,
I
no,
see.
nobody should wait. Take
I
that
can-
back.
I can
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. No, I think that's okay. My mother is an amazing cook. My sisters are amazing cooks. I
Yeah,
just didn't get that because I'm
yeah,
a dog.
yeah.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
That's what you always wanted to
I
be.
always ate dog biscuits. So it's like, yeah.
No, you really ate dog
Yeah, I
biscuits?
saved my allowance when I was little and I would go and buy dog
No,
biscuits and then I'd feed some
Sarah.
to the neighborhood dogs, but I liked them too. Milk
What?
bones, they're not bad. Yeah. If you're hungry,
Probably packed with protein.
probably. Yeah, I can chase a ball.
What? That's amazing. Okay, so at what point did you, from, having parenting being your main gig,
Yeah.
switch from that to getting back like full force into the working world? And was Let There Be Light that transition, or was there other things in between?
Yeah. So when my youngest entered, I think middle school, I went back to school. I went to get another master's at the University of Connecticut. Go Huskies. I
Love
actually
it.
don't care about tribal things like that. But anyway, people seem to. Um, so I went back and I was doing a master's in humanitarian service administration
Okay.
with, and I made up my major. So it was off-grid rural electrification. Um,
Wait, are you serious?
yeah.
Off-grid rural like,
Vacation. But the reason being, this was like, say, 2010-ish,
okay.
and we were coming to a point where solar was becoming much more affordable, and there was this discussion internationally. So I was always kind of keeping like doing research and stuff. I'm a little geeky that way, but there was this discussion about how potentially getting people electrified in non-electrified communities, off-grid communities, especially in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, that there might be an opportunity to leapfrog over conventional uh, methods of electrification, like having huge power plants and having
Mhm.
lines and telephone poles that conduct blah 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 and substations. The way that in many places in the world in 2010 had leapfrogged over traditional landlines for telephones, and people were getting cell phones. Like this was like this idea that was being adapted to the idea of energy access. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because when I was 13, my parents sent me to live in a village in Kenya with my aunt and uncle and cousins, and I had experienced energy poverty and I had seen
Yeah.
what it was like to live without access to electricity, and that was way before computers.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking in the early 2000s, 2010 about how, oh, if we can just get everyone a computer in the whole world, then everybody will have a level playing field. And that's kind of a nice idea, except what if you can't plug it in? It's
Right.
not very
You can't plug it
useful.
in. It's not
Yeah.
gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
there's not much you can do with that. It's just a brick.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was interested, and at that point too, when I went back to school, electrification and energy access was always talked about in a monetized way. So like, you want access to electricity, give me the money,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what I was curious about was what happens with all those hundreds of millions of people who are being left behind, who can't afford, to wire a home, who have thatched roofs, who don't have, who are subsistence farmers.
Yeah.
Why aren't we discussing that? And so in 2012, I went to Uganda with my daughter Eva when she graduated from high school. Yeah, high school. She wanted to go work in an AIDS orphanage. And I'd been doing my graduate work, and I was like, oh, I want to really look into this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that, and we met a lot of people who said, yeah, I mean, I wish I could participate in the energy transformation, but we don't have the money, or I'm a handicapped elder, and blah blah. And so this organization that I met there, we decided to pilot some projects and see, like, would it be possible to just get people who are really, 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 really poor and in need just some basic energy access, basic, like, portable solar light
Yeah.
to help them take care of themselves. And why isn't this being considered in a package of care? We
Yeah.
consider water and food
Right.
totally necessary.
Yeah.
Shelter is usually pretty necessary,
Yeah.
but within a shelter,
Yeah.
like, what is, you want it to be safe, but also having light is really critical for chores, for education, for women's health, for women's safety. I mean,
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah.
very high
Absolutely.
rates of domestic abuse, as well as people being attacked going to get firewood or something. But if you have light, it scares away the snakes. It might scare away a potential attacker.
Yeah.
There's all these different knock-on effects of having access to a light.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that was 2012. I come back to Connecticut to my family
Mm-hmm.
with Eva, and Hurricane Sandy hits.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, all my neighbors and I are without electricity. It's only a couple weeks,
Wow.
but it was like,
That's
it
wild.
was so interesting. And I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, I've just been in Uganda, and there's solar lights. And people just got really tired of listening to
Yeah.
me. I said, shut up and do it. And
Right.
so it was just, it was luck, it was timing. So we piloted some projects in
Yeah.
2014. We incorporated, which happened to be the year that the UN declared as the decade of sustainable energy for all. And the for all is what I was really interested in. And in 2015, the UN, all the countries, I don't know how many there are right now, but agreed to the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a set of goals that the entire global community is working towards, which include ending extreme hunger. But number 7 is energy access and increasing renewables. And so I had just started this organization called Let There Be Light International that was trying to deal with global poverty and climate issues and extreme poverty. And so I was like, oh, cool. So I just started writing people at the UN saying, you might want to include me in a conversation. And most people said no, but I was old enough that I didn't really care. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? And then a
Yeah.
few people said yes. And then when our past administration pulled us out of the Paris Accord, there was a big groundswelling of mayors and big companies and other and nonprofits that got together and created something called We Are Still In. And so Let There Be Light became a civil service signatory at the UN to the Paris Accord, which
Got
was
it.
really cool.
So cool.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so,
That's
yeah.
amazing. I think I needed to hear you say that you just started writing to the UN like, "Hey, we're doing like what you are wanting people to do, just so you know, and like I should be a part of this. We should talk." Um, because I think that is like we all need to hear that. We have to do things like that. It's so rare that whatever you want to happen to you is just gonna like land in your lap. we have to be the ones to go and ask for it. So have you ever had maybe, and it doesn't have to be just with Let There Be Light, could be with anything in your life. Have you ever had those feelings of like, well, what if they reject this, or what if this fails, or who am I to try this? Like, have you
Every
experienced that?
single day. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the imposter syndrome
Yeah.
nonsense, but also like what is a middle-aged, maybe even older,
No.
white lady in Western New York doing
Mm-hmm.
addressing energy poverty in off-grid sub-Saharan Africa?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, quite frankly, it's all of our partners. We have 12 partners in 4 countries who are doing the real work.
Yeah.
I co-create the programming with them. I analyze all the data. We're very data driven. But really, my hope is that by empowering the groups in these countries, that they're able to run with it more
Yeah.
than we are. And in fact, we're trying to create demonstration projects that can be taken up by some of the larger organizations out there, like a Save the Children or a Gates Foundation, like demonstrating to them the incredible return on investment, social return on investment of including basic energy access in health programming, education, HIV/AIDS programming.
Yeah.
We're hopefully going to be working soon with a couple of doctors from the US who work with a team in Uganda who are working on palliative care. The idea
Mm.
being if you can get lights to people who are living without access to electricity, one thing we're curious about is does it decrease their reliance on medications that are really hard to get in these places?
Yeah.
Because at nighttime, if you're feeling unsafe and you're, suffering, you the thought is one might be using more medication. Maybe a light can be helping to soothe some of that. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's all sorts
Yeah.
of, but yeah, all the time I feel like I don't, yeah, I don't, I
Yeah.
don't know
How
whether
do
I
you
should ask for these things or not.
Yeah. So
But
what I mean, with obviously with Let There Be Light, you're driven by the mission, you're driven by the impact that you know it has, and you're driven by, the what you can do for other people and for the globe, for all of us. But even with like personal things, like do you just kind of talk yourself through it, or do you look back at, oh, okay, well, I've done this before, I've been through this hard thing before, so I can do another hard thing again? Like, do you have any specific tools that you use to push yourself to do the thing even when you feel afraid to do it?
yeah, I think for probably almost 30 years now, one of my touchstones has been a yoga practice, which, full disclosure, comes and goes.
Yeah.
Um, I
Thank
wish
you
I
for
could
saying that.
say that it was every day I'm doing, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not,
Yeah.
but I cultivated the tools over a long period of time where it really was pretty much every day. That now when I'm in those moments, I do go back, I meditate, I do have some of those language tools to calm myself down, like
Mhm.
trying to cultivate the equanimity, trying not to have preconceived ideas about what outcomes are going to be, recognizing that there's pain and we're all living with pain.
Yeah.
And like I lost my brother, that not lost, my brother died this year. That was incredibly hard. Is remains incredibly hard. But I do think that my yoga and my meditation practice have helped me navigate those waters, if only to remember that, yeah, life is pain, and it's really, how we carry it or move through it that is,
Yeah.
how we emerge.
Yeah. Totally. Which, kind of on the same topic, can you think of a time in your life that was really challenging, that maybe felt like it was going to go on forever? And then you got to the other side of it and you can see how that helped you to grow or, improve your life in some way that maybe you wouldn't have if that challenging time had not happened.
I'm not gonna share it,
Sure.
but I feel like yes, when I'm thinking of this particular, it was actually a relationship, but yeah, it's helped me, know that I'm maybe strong, but also going back to the meditation, like if I'm having a struggle that seems intractable, especially with a person.
Yeah.
Um, the meta meditation, I don't know how familiar you are with that, but
No.
that's a loving kindness meditation
Mm.
where you focus on sending love and not even understanding, really sending love and support to the person you're having trouble with, as well as to someone you barely know. Maybe it's a person Mary I just met who
Yeah.
served me coffee.
Yeah.
Um, but taking that, it's self-care, but it's really not. It's really about sending the care and the love out
Yeah.
and then expanding that to the entire world and then also bringing it back to yourself. So, being cognizant, I think Let There Be Light has helped me also be really cognizant that we are part of an ecosystem.
Yeah.
The eclipse was like that. I mean,
Yeah.
you realize, we're pretty insignificant and
Yeah.
yet we're all interconnected. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that I don't know.
Yeah.
Is
No,
that a
that
little
was
woo-woo? I don't know.
that's what we do here on this
We're,
podcast.
we're wooing
Welcome
and
to
wooing. Yeah.
exactly so
Okay.
much woo. Which speaking of, so I started reading. Well, I started listening to this audiobook called Signs, and it's this woman who is a psychic medium, and she gives her like credentials at the beginning. She's been through all like the testing and whatever. She seems very legit. I
Okay.
believe her.
Okay.
But she talks about how when people cross over, they're constantly giving us signs. They really are all the time in different ways. And she shares like very specific stories throughout the book to like just, back up all of it and encourage you to like see that. And for me, one, it was so interesting because I just started reading this book maybe 2 days ago. And I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I think I've talked to you about my friend Shahada, maybe not. But she was a girl that I met when I was working at Roswell, and she unfortunately lost her battle with cancer when she was 17, and she became very close to me. She was like a little sister, and I try and talk about her and bring her with me in all the things that I do to just keep her spirit alive. But I used to take her trick or treating, and she always dressed up as a ladybug. And so after she passed, I would see ladybugs all the time. Like they would just be in my car, like, just constantly. Like I remember I did a Relay for Life. I worked at American Cancer Society after Roswell Park, and I did Relay for Lives. And I did a Canisius University Relay for Life. And there was a slideshow that we put together that the kids all contributed to with like photos of people that they had lost. And I had put a photo of Shahada in there, and it was obviously very emotional. And I saw one of the students step away and go to the bathroom, and she had recently lost her mom. And so I went to the bathroom to go check on her. And I walk into the locker room, and in the middle of the locker room on the floor is the ladybug. Just and it's tiny, so it's like,
Yeah.
how did I even see this on this like checkered floor on the bottom? Like, so that happens all the time. But what was cool was that I went yesterday. I had this event that another one of my clients, People Inc., was doing at a liquor store. Okay. And I had to bring the boys with me, and we were getting a couple bottles of
She's
wine
bringing her children to
to
liquor
liquor
stores, guys.
stores.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing
Okay.
now. It was like, proceeds. I was going to, anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm like picking out a bottle of wine, and Jax goes, Mom, look, a ladybug. And he points, it was a sticker, but it was like on the label of this wine. And like I had talked to him about the symbol of ladybugs to be before, but he forgot about it. And for some reason, he just like wanted to point out this little shiny ladybug sticker. So, but I thought that was so cool because I've been reading this book, and as I was reading it, I was like, huh, I haven't seen a ladybug in a while. And then sure enough,
Oh.
like there she was. So I bring that up because you talked about woo woo, and like I've just been thinking a lot about this stuff lately. So do you have any, like, is there anything like that in your life with people who have passed that you find little signs of them that you think is them just trying to say hello?
Yeah, not quite as benign as a ladybug maybe,
Yeah,
but like after Cam, my brother, died, and I wish I had like the story. I'm probably going to get this wrong because it's like, with memory and an emotional story, sometimes
for sure.
it alters.
Yeah.
But I was walking right near where I work, and I was so mad that my brother died, one of those
Yeah.
stages of grief,
Yeah.
and I just felt like punching him in the nose, even though he was dead. Okay, that wasn't a really great
Yeah.
impulse, but this guy rode past me on a bike on the sidewalk and bopped me on the back of the head. And I was like, holy shit snacks. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can say shit.
Okay. And because at that moment, I've been like, oh, I just want to punch him. I can't believe he died.
That's so
And
crazy.
I get bonked on the back of the head. And I was like, hey. And the guy just biked away. And I thought, oh, wait, that was Cam. That
Yeah.
was telling me, snap out of it. You don't need to punch anybody. You don't need to bonk anybody. Just, snap out of it. I love you. And I was like, oh, okay. Love you too, Cam.
Yeah.
So, so that was not quite as benign as the ladybug. But yeah,
But it is. And I think it's like the feeling you get when it happens that you're
yeah,
like, I know what this is.
yeah.
Like to somebody else, they'd be like, what the heck? Why this guy?
I
But you're
just
like, I know. Like you
So
feel it
many
in your
people
body.
told me, "No, you were assaulted." And I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna think of it that way because it really wasn't what was happening at the."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and my husband Ben is very he's a scientist. He's really he doesn't believe in the woo-woo stuff too much. But both
I'll talk to him. We'll
yeah,
work it out.
both
We'll
when
work it out.
his sister died and when his dad died and when his mom died, he had visitations. Like
Wow.
that was crazy. And
Wow.
he's certain that they came to see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
believe it.
and yeah.
There was one time I had a dream and Shahada was in it. And then I was like half awake, half asleep. And I swear I heard her say my name like she used to. And
Yeah.
but it was like her voice, like you can hear and it's like, that's, yeah. And it was like maybe in the last year or so too. So she passed, I don't know how many years ago now. It was maybe like, oh, actually it was 2015 because it was like right after Jax was born.
Wow.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
wild. I
Yeah.
love stuff like that.
Yeah. I was totally into that for a while. I
Yeah.
also, when I was young, wanted to be a fortune teller. I did. And I tried to learn how to read palms but apparently my lifeline ends like when I'm like 7 or 8 or something. So
Well,
I'm
that's
not
not true.
really here.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess not. I guess
but
not.
I was really curious about that and like which
Yeah.
finger's longer than the other one. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Well, we can talk about all that stuff. I have some
okay.
weird toes, so I wonder if that like it
Oh.
means anything. One toe is longer than I don't. Anyway,
Okay.
I
I
hate
think
my
that
feet.
means you're royal when your second
Oh,
toe's longer than your first.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. So you should start wearing a crown.
I'm gonna tell that to my I should do that. My former college roommate Missy because she hated it and she would tell me how terrible my feet were all the time.
She's just not used to royalty.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm gonna tell her that.
All right, Queen.
Thank you. I'd like to only be addressed as that from now on. We are running out of time here, unfortunately.
Ah,
I feel like we've only like scratched the surface. But
we didn't even talk about it. So Let There Be Light International
yes,
does we
go
do
ahead.
we do solar programming in off-grid Africa. So we solar electrify health clinics. We've done 86 and we get lights into people's homes who can't afford to participate in market-based solutions. So
That's right.
elders
Impacted
and
over 1.2 million
1.2 million
people.
people in the last 10 years. Yeah, coming
It's
up on our
amazing.
10th anniversary.
It's amazing.
Come to Solar Celebration at
That's right.
Silo City on June 25th
You can see
to
both of us there.
party down with us.
That's
Yeah.
right. At Duende. It's so great. We'll put the link to get your tickets in the show notes. So make sure to do that. Follow us on I say us because I've been working with Sarah for a really long time and
Yes.
it's really great. So follow us on Instagram, Shine on LTBLI.
It's a mouthful, but it's worth it.
But it is worth it. We put some good stuff out there. Shout out to Joe, our intern, who's doing a great job with that, and Kyra, who did it for a really long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, come get your tickets. $30 for a ticket, suggested donation. $15 is the equivalent of sending one solar light to a family or an elder or a new mom.
And by sending, we don't mean sending. We actually
Correct.
source them in country to stimulate local markets.
Very
But we
important
work
distinction.
with local nonprofits in these countries that are already working with these populations in need.
That's right. We're not flying in like ourselves, like, here you go.
Ah, no.
No. We work with the people who are there, who are living there, who are of and from the community, and they know what they need, and we just help them to have it. So yeah, so check that out. But last question.
Oh, yeah.
I know you know the last
My
question.
favorite color?
No.
Oh,
What is your favorite color?
black.
Really?
Yeah, always has been since I was 2.
What?
Yes. Okay.
Interesting choice.
Mhm.
We'll talk about that later. No, it's your last day on Earth. You've had a wonderful life,
I have.
self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
You've done all the things. Let there be light did exactly what you wanted it to do. That could be a lot of things. So we'll let everyone else figure that out. What are your 3 lessons that you would leave behind for your children, your grandchildren? What are the 3 things that you want them to know?
We're all connected. Judge less. Love more.
Love that. That's beautiful.
Uh,
We're all connected. Judge less. Love more. I
okay.
need to hear all of those things today. Thank you.
So
I
do
really
I.
did. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the love more right now. I really needed that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Well,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. I know you've
It
got a
was
lot on
fun.
your plate, and
You
I've
can
been trying
catch
to
me
get
at the
you.
comedy station. No, just kidding. Yeah.
She'll be on tour soon. Stay tuned for the dates.
Uh,
I can't wait. We should start it. So we should have a comedy section of the Solar
oh yeah,
Celebration.
no. Hard no. But this was really fun. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for
Okay.
being here. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share, please rate, subscribe, do all the things. That would be great. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, there's a few things you can do to really help your girl out. Please subscribe, rate the podcast, give me a little review. All those things really do help me in a lot of ways. And this year, I'm really trying to expand my reach. I'm trying to get this podcast in front of more people who might need it. My people, our people. So let's keep growing this beautiful community of nice people who are just trying to be their best selves. So if you know someone who might like it, please send them the link, share it in your stories, tag us, which is another thing you can do, actually. If you're not already, please follow us on Instagram at @mostlyallfiguredout. I've actually been very good about posting new episodes every Friday, so you can see who is up. You can get some little previews, sneak previews with some sound bites that we post throughout the week. And it really helps, again, in expanding our reach a little bit and getting us out there in front of more people. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting. Love ya.